record. Brilliant. Okay, guys, welcome to a special interview. My name is Mani Hanif, and today it gives me great pleasure to have someone who I've been sort of following for a while. I've followed her journey for a number of years now, and it's none other than Sabah Ali, who is actually the founder of Brands That Sell. She's a business coach. She's a 2-time TEDx speaker, and she's a #1 best-selling author. And her mission is to create unforgettable lives and, of course, unforgettable brands. So Sabah, it's great to have you, and please introduce yourself, and away you go.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. That was an awesome introduction on its own. And yeah, I know we've been, connected for a while. So I'm really excited to come on here, provide all the value with all the things. I always say every time I come on, do an interview podcast show, I'm like an open book. So feel
Absolutely.
free to ask me anything and everything. But yeah, thank you again for having me.
Awesome. I suppose the first thing I wanted to ask you, Sabah, is how long have you been doing on this journey, and what was your motivation for doing what you do?
Yeah, so I actually got started in building my brand, posting on social media when I was 19 years old, still in college. So I'm 25 years old now. And for the first, I want to say like 2 to 3 years, all I was doing was documenting, sharing my story online. And that's when, quote unquote, I started to build a brand without really even knowing it. So I was in college, I was sharing all the value just around personal development, my routine, connecting with people, how to even write content, speak. And that's how I actually published my best-selling book when I was 20 years old. And that was the first product that I sold online. And that's when I realized, like, okay, there's people that are following me that actually need help taking their story, creating a message, and, potentially building a business out of it. So for me, I basically got started in my business coaching when people started to come to me asking for help. And this was back in 2018, 2019, when I first actually got started in my coaching business. And then, of course, I've been doing it full time since then. But for me, one of the reasons why I ever even started to build my brand, create content online, was because in high school, I was in a terrible, toxic 4-year relationship, and my mom passed away when I was 15 years old. So for me, when I got out of high school and I went into college, I was very lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life until I actually did meet one of my mentors through university, who told me that you should share your story because there's other people going through the same thing and they could learn from that.
Sure.
And for me, like back then, I didn't even know that was like a thing. So when I got introduced to this online space, it was just like game over when I started to create content online.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow, that's a fascinating story. You've also been a TEDx speaker. Talk to us a bit more about your journey in being on stage on TEDx, which is pretty much well known all over the world.
Yeah, so TEDx was probably, to this day, one of the most biggest accomplishments I've ever done in my life. And for me, one of the reasons why it was such a big goal was because when I met my mentor in university, I met him through a speaking engagement. He came and spoke in one of my classes. And for me, I was always just so astonished by speakers because they share their story. I always learned a lot from them. And I started to listen to a lot of TEDx talks online. And that really helped me get over a lot of trauma, healed myself in a lot of different ways. And it also did open up my mind to a lot of different perspectives on what I can change in my life and in my business. So for me, the first TEDx talk that I landed was, I believe, I can't even remember, it was in Michigan. So I'm originally from Iowa. I live in Florida now. It was in Michigan. And they chose me because, of course, I had a really great story to tell, but my entire premise of my talk was reconnecting back to yourself, right? It didn't matter any of the external things that were going on in your life. When you reconnect back to yourself, that's when you actually feel whole again. So that entire, that talk was just so amazing. I recited that talk probably well over 100 times. When I actually gave the talk, I knew it literally word for word, and it was around 15 minutes. And then my second talk, I got invited back to my university after I graduated to give that one. So that was also just amazing because that's when I really, started my brand, started my business was during college. So that was a really cool experience for me.
Wow, that's awesome because I've been watching your. That's how I actually found you on YouTube.
Yeah.
And TEDx is like something that I've always been fascinated by. So okay, so talk to us about the importance of branding, because I think that's your sort of expertise as a coach.
Yeah.
Why is it important to? I mean, there's a number of coaches now out there. Why is it important to establish a brand, and what makes a good brand in this day and age, Sabah?
Yeah. Yeah. Branding has always been so fascinating to me because like what I said earlier, I didn't wake up one morning and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a branding coach because that's
Sure.
like the thing to do. It was solely through experience. So,
Mm.
I always love to backtrack to when I got my first client online. It was 2019. I was like, okay, I'm going to create this coaching package, which is 101, 3 months. I'm going to teach you how to build a brand, build your audience, create content online. Very simple. So I made a post, I posted on Facebook, and right away someone commented and they're like, oh, I'm interested. Let's get on a call. And this specific person, he was older in his 40s. He had been following me all throughout my college journey. He was probably one of the first ever people who found me online. So I'm like, okay, he's probably just supporting. I don't know if he's actually going to sign on. I did the call. It was great. And then it got to the end and he was like, hey, like, what's the investment? And back then I was so afraid of money, of even asking people for money. And I was like, okay, it's like $4,000 for 4 months or 3 months. I can't even remember. And I was like, $4,000, like in a very hushed tone. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And that was the first time I landed my first ever high ticket client. But at that moment, I also asked him, I'm like, why did you choose to invest into me when he could have chose to invest in any other coach out there who was making 6 figures, 7 figures? I was making nothing because I just started.
Sure.
And he said, because I've been following you, I love your personality. I love how consistent you are. And I love the confidence you have. And I want that. So for me, at that moment, I realized it had nothing to do necessarily about how much money I was making in my business. It had to do with me and my brand.
Yeah.
So that's when I really got into branding and I started to teach other people, use your unique factor, your story to market yourself. Because in reality, there's thousands of people that are business coaches, branding coaches, marketing, sales, health, fitness, whatever niche you're in, but there's only one you. No one has your story. No one has your personality. So for me, it really was just a no-brainer that branding really is like the fuel and the foundation of running a successful business online or offline.
Wow, that you know what, I can actually relate to that. Branding is powerful, but people buy from people that they like. And this is very common now. I mean, if you go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, people are just posting videos. They just obviously one of the obstacles a lot of my clients have is getting themselves out there, which I'm going to ask you right now is what advice would you give to someone who is fearful of getting themselves out there? This person could be, talented. They could bring a lot to the market, but what is the number one fear that holds them back in your experience that sort of disconnects them from saying, oh, you know what, I don't want to do a video. I don't want to get myself out there. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, so most people have that because it's fear of embarrassment or fear of judgment, right? So for me, and I always laugh at this too, because if you met me back when I was 19, 20 years old, I was the shyest person in the room. Never in a million years would I even speak on stage, let alone do a video online or even do like this interview right now, the shyest person ever. So if you were to actually go back and watch my first ever live video I did on Facebook, it's the cringiest thing ever. I think the first thing that people need to realize is you're not going to be perfect right off the
Yeah.
bat. Everyone started at day one.
Mm-hmm.
So once you accept the fact that you probably are going to suck in the beginning, it really does relieve the pressure of being perfect when you show up online. But then the second thing also is when you are starting to put yourself out there on social media with content in your business, you have to also accept the fact that people are going to judge you, they are going to hate, but you are thinking about yourself more than the people that you're going to be helping.
Sure.
A lot of the times back when I did a lot more in-person speaking engagements, people would ask me, do you get nervous on stage? I'm like, yes, I always do. And in the beginning, when I first got started speaking, I got super nervous. And one of my mentors told me, you're getting nervous because you're only thinking about yourself when you're on stage. Am I walking weird? Did I stumble over my words? Are people staring at me? Like, you're just thinking about yourself. So of course you're going to feel very nervous. If you flip the script and you think about how can I actually impact these people in the audience that are actually watching me, you're going to relieve the pressure. Same thing online, right? It's like people are so worried about themselves. They might have judgments that, go across their mind when they see you, but in reality, they're not going to be thinking about you at, 8 p.m. when they're in bed thinking about their problems.
Absolutely.
That's like the way I look at it. So, I think the main thing is just self-awareness that you will get judged, people will hate, but then if you flip the script and you're not thinking about yourself, you will relieve that pressure when you're showing up online.
Absolutely. And I always say it takes baby steps, because it's like driving a car. The first few days, you're going to suck. First few days, first few weeks, and eventually after 6 months, you can drive without the aid of an instructor, and you're ready to take the plunge. And then the same goes with whether you're doing, a Facebook Live. I can remember when I was first on stage years and years ago, I was dead nervous. I mean, these were people, 500-600 people. I went on stage, and that time I thought, you know what, I'll just be myself. All I've got to do is give value. And at the end of that presentation, it just made me a better person, because that allowed me to step out of my comfort zone and continue with what I was doing. So my other question for you is, so I work, obviously you work with a lot of coaches, and the coaching industry, there's so many coaches out there. What, in your view, makes a perfect offer? So offer is something that you're very skilled at as well, I've seen. What makes a perfect offer for your target audience?
Yeah. So with offers, there's of course so many elements that go into creating a perfect offer. But if I were to zone into one thing, it is the messaging. Because like what I said earlier, there's so many coaches, they're teaching the exact same thing. Like in reality, people are teaching how to create content, how to have offers, how to market, how to sell. It's the exact same thing. The way that you structure your messaging in your content is going to decipher whether or not people are going to join, right? So for an example, I always love to use an example of an umbrella, right? It's an actual physical product. Most of the time when I see people marketing their offers online, they talk about the actual features, right? So, you get X amount of videos, you get 10 calls, these video modules with umbrella. It's like, okay, it's waterproof with a wooden handle. If you click the button, it automatically goes up. They're talking about their features, but they're rarely talking about the actual benefits, right? So if you were to take that same exact concept of an umbrella and talk about, if you have this umbrella on, a Saturday morning, and you use it as a shade, so you can actually watch the baseball game with your kids, so, instead of sweating and not seeing what's going on, like that actually paints a picture and relieves a real struggle, a pain point that's happening in their life, right? So same thing with an offer. Most of the time with offers, people are struggling and chasing clients every single month and relying all of their cash flow for one specific offer. If you have multiple that are selling on the background, you don't have to worry about that one client who may or may not be able to pay you, right? So it's more about, I like to emotionalize my content so that way people can actually feel the true life change that's going to happen once they do invest into it.
Wow, that example of an umbrella is perfect. And I think people listening to this, I mean, that itself, you've just shared a powerful strategy, because I myself, when I first started, in selling my offer, I basically just read everything that they're going to get. You're going to get a funnel, you're going to get a website. And I thought, what am I doing wrong? What's preventing people to buy from me? And then I thought, maybe I need to give a better messaging behind the offer. Clarity is important. So the next question I want to ask you, and obviously you touched upon this before when you spoke about your first ever client, pricing. So I know you do low ticket, high ticket, and I've seen your the stuff that you're doing right now. So how do you decide whether to price something at high ticket or low ticket? Is it good to have one offer, or is it good to have, as you mentioned, multiple offers in sort of different areas?
Yeah, so I always say, like, your business, your way. So build a business in the way that you want to. Some people don't want to have multiple offers. Some people just want to focus on selling one. For me, I've always had more than one offer. However, for the first like 1 to 2 years of my business, I did heavily just focus on a high ticket until I realized I was exchanging a lot of time away for money, and I didn't like that. So it was literally just within like the past 6 to 8 months, I really started to diversify more of my offers. So it is more low and mid ticket offers. But when it comes to pricing, I price higher if I'm once again giving more time away. People join my high ticket programs, one-on-ones, masterminds, because they want access to me. They don't just want to learn the strategy, the step-by-step, but they actually want to learn how I navigate issues, how I build my team, emotional intelligence, like what happens when a client refunds you, talks bad about you, like how to actually handle the true either like criticism or hardships when it comes to building and scaling a business, and not just in business, but then also in personal life. People tend to buy my mid ticket and low ticket if they actually want to learn like the value and the strategy, the frameworks. So for me, like, I'll put together an hour-long masterclass, charge $100 to $200, and people will get so much value. And if they implement right away, like they could make thousands of dollars. Same thing with my high ticket, right? So for me, it's less about like, for low ticket, I'm not going to add that much value because I want people to buy into my high ticket. I will add the same amount of value as my low and my high. It's just more about, for me, proximity. If you actually want access to me, of course, you're going to have to pay more for it.
Absolutely. Okay. So which goes to my question is, what makes a 10K offer or a 50K offer? And the other question is, how do people decide what value to offer in the 10K offer as opposed to, let's say, a 5K offer?
So once again, like the exact same thing I said, for me, it's time. It's time that I'm putting into my clients, but then also like length of the container, right? It's like naturally, if it's, a 10K offer, it's probably going to be more than like 7 days long, right? It's probably like 1 to 3 months or something. So like when people ask me about offers and the actual structure of it, like there's no one way, like it really depends on the individual. So I don't always like to say like, do this, 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 and this, because once again, like awareness of how you want to be building your business. I know people who charge $10,000 for half a VIP day, and they just like build out their entire structure for their business, and then they're like done. Versus other people I see charging $10,000 for 6 months one-on-one, and that works for them because they're at a very different stage in their business. So I never recommend like creating an offer and putting a lot of stuff on it just to charge high ticket, because in reality, you don't need much more fluff in order to get a result. It's just more about that potency and the accessibility that someone's getting during that actual container.
Brilliant. I like that. Okay, so 100% of what you do is all organic. See, if I had to sort of position you, I would consider you as an organic marketing machine with what you've done. How do you come up with ideas for content to put out there? Let's say, one of the biggest obstacles my clients come to me say, well, how can't I possibly post on Facebook? There's YouTube, there's Instagram, there's TikTok. How do you combat that problem of posting in the right channels, and how would
Yeah.
you systemize that?
Yeah. So um I say primary and secondary platforms. So when you're just starting, have one primary platform and then have a secondary one where you're posting the exact same thing on it. So for me, it's always been like Instagram and Facebook. To this day, I literally post the exact same thing on both. So it's not like I'm creating two different pieces of content, but like Instagram and Facebook are so similar that I don't really need to change any of like the copy or the structure or the image. I can post the exact same thing. In if you're trying to choose which platform to use, always ask yourself, like, where is your ideal client hanging around? Just recently, within the past few months, I've really focused on TikTok now, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm good with Facebook, I'm good with Instagram. I have audiences on both. Now it's time for me to actually diversify. So if you're looking at like a circle and you put like a line down the middle, and you're focusing on two platforms, that's like 50% attention on one and 50% on other. If you put another line, it's like 25, 25, 25, 25. So for me, it's like, if you're just starting, it doesn't make sense to only put 25% of your attention on one social media platform, because it's going to take 4 times as long as if you're going to just focus on one or two. So it's just as simple as that, like choose 1 to 2 and just use the exact same content. And then in terms of what to post, this I always find so funny because I feel like people really overcomplicate creating content. Like, what is your offer? If you don't know what your offer is, start with there. But once you have your offer, like, why do people need it? Like, what are the actual pain points? What are the solutions? And just create content around that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
One thing I always talk about too, I've said this in a lot of my trainings, is like the couch scenario. So think about, you're sitting on a couch with your best friend, significant other, and you're just talking about your offers and your business. You will probably say so many things that you can create content on, but you don't, actually think about it when you're sitting on your laptop creating, because you're trying to think about what the right type of content is going to bring in clients. And when you do that, that's when you create generic content, you copy other coaches, and it's not really coming from your actual voice. So
yes.
That's like the simplest way that I would say to create content.
Wow, powerful. That's really good advice. And the way you've sort of mentioned that copying coaches, some people, and my advice is always be yourself. But I have some people, they're copying everybody else, and then it's not coming from them. So I think that's very powerful. So final couple of questions I want to ask you. The other one being, do you need a website or a funnel to have a successful coaching business?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. For the first 2 years in my business, I didn't use any form of funnel or website. I had one, but I never used it to even get clients. It was just for my personal brand. But I basically just like took payment on the call. Or I sent out like Stripe invoices or like PayPal invoices. You don't need one. Of course, when you do start to diversify your offers and you aren't getting on sales calls, because I rarely get on sales calls anymore, and you are just, closing through Messenger or just simply through social media, you just want like a simple landing page. For me, my landing pages are like literally like one page. It just states what the offer is, any like details that they need, start date, and then like you buy on there. So you really don't need it. And the main reason why I say you don't need it is because you do all your marketing on social media. If you do a good job describing what your offer is, I don't really understand why someone needs the landing page, because they already know what the offer is through your social media. So in reality, all you need is that transaction link for someone to actually pay you. So you don't need it. I feel like people spend a lot of time building out a website because they think that will make them more professional. But like social media is your website nowadays. I would just focus on creating content on there.
That's powerful. Social media is actually effectively your website. And I think having your own website is so, 5, 6, 7 years ago now. So the final question I want to sort of ask you, and this is obviously putting you on the spot. If you could pick one platform, and if you had, let's say, just yourself, your voice, your microphone, and if you could start from zero, what platform would you pick, and how would you do it? And you had no email list. It was just you, your story, and that's it. You just had one platform.
TikTok.
And you had TikTok, right? Wonderful.
Yeah, TikTok. And the reason why is because people are literally and like literally going viral overnight. The potential that is on TikTok for you to get seen, to build your audience, is so much faster for you to build an audience than any other social media platform right now. For me, once again, like, I had started on Instagram and Facebook, so I already had an audience, but on TikTok, like I'm doing research on there now because I'm actually growing. So I see people, you know, with specific stories and trends go viral with their videos. So for me, I would take my story and just create video on it. I would research other people who have gone viral in a short amount of time and look at their videos, look at their hooks, look at the story, look at the call to actions, look at their lighting, the sound, the length of the video. And I would create the exact same models and just use my own story with it. And for me, I'd use TikTok to build my email list, to build my Instagram, and to build my Facebook. So I would basically use TikTok if I literally started from zero, from scratch, and just do the exact same thing I did in the beginning. Because what a lot of people also don't know, my last year of college, I did a daily Facebook Live documenting my senior year as I was building my business. So it would basically, I would do the exact same thing on TikTok, just like what I did on Facebook. And I guarantee I would, you know, grow probably faster than I did prior to me, of course. But yeah, like TikTok just has so much potential, and yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add about TikTok is it is what Facebook was like years and years ago.
Yeah.
And the growth of TikTok has been phenomenal. It's one of my favorite platforms. I love it. I'm always on it, experimenting different strategies, what's working, what people are doing. I mean, people who are on live on TikTok, they have like 400-500 people at a time. Like literally all you need is 2 or 3 people, high ticket, and you literally, you know, offered that value. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to connect with you, would love to use your services, get coached by you. How would people do that? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So obviously social media, the best place to probably find me, connect with me, consume a lot of my content is on Instagram. So my handle is at the Sabah Ali. So THE and then my first and last name. And yeah, feel free to follow me, connect with me on there. If you go to the link in my bio, I have tons and tons of free resources and trainings all around branding, marketing, sales. So yeah, that's probably the best place to find me.
Brilliant. Well, Sabah, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing tons of value. And I'm sure my subscribers, my audience is going to get a lot of knowledge from this, and I'm sure they're going to get in touch with you. So if there's any final thing that you'd like to say before you go, anything that you want to say to give advice to new and upcoming coaches, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I always love to say this quote that's on the back of my book. No, you have the ability to do anything in life. No one is going to stop you besides yourself. There can be so many external things that are happening in your life, which may block you from getting to the place that you want to be. But in reality, like those things aren't real blocks, right? You can get over them and you can go out there, build a business, change your life, move across the country, because that's what I did when I knew nobody, and truly live and create a life that is unforgettable.
Brilliant. Well, Sabah, thank you so much. And hopefully we will be hearing from you again, I'm sure, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.